everybody, welcome to Ask the Anabolic Doc, starring Dr. Thomas O'Connor, brought to you by his book, America on Steroids, A Time to Heal, and his website, testosteronology.com. This is a brand new branch of medicine just for men that Dr. O'Connor pioneered. He is the first testosteronologist treating men all over the world, and he's training a whole crew of medical professionals who will be able to carry on his work. And just want to welcome you from a state that is still locked down, because you're not in Florida where things are opening up. You're in Connecticut. Please welcome Dr. Thomas O'Connor. What's up?
Thank you very much, Ron. Muscular Development.
Yeah. So I'm just curious, when are you going back to Florida? Because Florida's, I think they're opening just about everything up.
We're just dreaming of it, Ron. You know, I haven't touched a patient in 2 months, but it's been digital. Thank God for us. Thank God for that. And we're going, I think, July.
Wow. Okay.
I mean, because we're just so cranked up. We're so cranked out up here, and the kid's not going back to school. They're just going to go right into college. He's 14. He's going to college. No, I don't know. This is tough.
On his laptop, he's going to college.
You know what I mean? I mean, a PhD in gaming. I think. I don't know.
Oh, I am.
It's tough, right?
If they offered one of those, my son would definitely have a doctorate. I can tell you that. Yeah. 4:30, 5 in the morning. I get up to go to the bathroom. He's still playing games in his room.
Oh my God. Okay, I feel better, dude. I feel better. Your kid's doing it too.
Living that vampire life. Anyway, so doctor, on your channel, Anabolic Doc, you did a recent video. What was your title? I think you called it "How to Get Big and Strong Without Drugs."
How to get big and strong without drugs.
So rather than completely rip off your title and subject, as I usually do, I wanted to put a twist on it. I want to pose it as a question, because I get this question all the time from young men mostly. They want to know how big and strong can they personally get without steroids. And I just want to preface that by saying, because there's so much genetic variation, there's so many factors involved, I can't tell you, okay, kid, you're 5'9", you're ultimately going to be 191 pounds at 14% body fat, and this is what your measurements will be. It's impossible to say. Yeah, but awesome. I liked your video because you started off by pointing out the fact that long before steroids were invented, there have been big, strong men in this world of ours, because there is a very, very prevalent belief among this generation, and I blame it on so much knowledge and availability and access to knowledge about steroids, that there's an entire generation of young guys now growing up, starting out weight training with this limiting belief in their minds that you can't build any muscle, any strength. You're not going to get any stronger. You can't build 1 ounce of muscle unless you pump in the steroids.
So that's amazing.
First of all, please bust that myth. Can you explain that?
So it's all about the age. It's about the age, right? I'm 55 years old, from the 80s and the 90s. So it's like, before I even thought of I was like an anti-steroid guy. And not that I'm a pro-steroid guy, but I used to front squat like 315 for reps. And I'm not the strongest guy, but I'm pretty strong. And I would eat food and get huge. And who cares about being big and puffy and fat? I just want to be strong. I didn't want to do steroids. I was, I was 19, 23. I started early, 13, yep. Like you, way back in the day. And around then, we knew about steroids, but it was wasn't it kind of far away? Wasn't it kind of far in the distance? No, not 1980s, early 90s, but for me, 80s, there's no cell phones, believe it, but no social media, just guys in the gym. I've written countless articles, and I've trained and written and done videos with countless expert guys training strongmen and powerlifters, because that's my world, and old school. And from that era, like you had to get big, super freaking big and strong naturally, 100% naturally. And then you were kind of tapped on the shoulder, Ron, right? You were kind of, you remember this? You were kind of like in a club where like, hey man, why don't you stay after the gym tonight? Like, why don't you come out for a beer, right, Ron?
I didn't get the invite like you did. No, I didn't. It wasn't like that.
And then I'm not gonna, I'm open now about things, obviously, like, and then it's like you did a little bit of Anavar, Winstrol, a little bit of test. Scared, and it worked like a charm. It was just like, because you built a base. I was 220, totally drug free. definitely have the body dysmorphia background. Thank God I'm in remission, and I'm not joking.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
you joke about, I mean, it's like, I used to wake up when I was 20 something years old, Ron, and I'd wake up in a panic to go out to eat half of a stick of butter. I told you that, my butter story.
God, that's
Just to be
disgusting.
200. And I just, the scales, the only thing that mattered, I used to put batteries in my pockets if I go to the doctor's office.
What? Come
So
on.
I swear I did. I heard a buddy of mine did that. I was like, I'm going to put batteries. I don't want to be embarrassed. So I
Wow.
want to see that number. And then we would do anything and that's where those books came out, Ron. Then I wasn't, you ain't been squatting. And then I trained with guys upstate, Hercules Health Club. Shout out to Hercules Health Club up in Syracuse, New York, old school powerlifting gym to this day in the 80s. And they let me come in. It was kind of like these select, it's an aggressive place, Ron. It's not pretty.
Yeah.
It's dirty,
These
nasty.
places they don't exist anymore. So
Ron, they're done. They're done. This little place. And trained for a year and a half in there, and then it was kind of tapping the shoulder. I started training with the big, with squat parties where you'd set up around the squat. And back then it was no racks. We had to squat off the uprights, Ron, I swear to God.
like Ronnie Coleman in his videos. Yeah.
It's true. And then we'd have the seats, the folding chairs set up, and we would in between the sets.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, Ron,
For your knee wraps, so you can sit there and wrap up your knees and unwrap your knees.
I have varicose veins. I've destroyed the veins in my lower legs from knee wrapping.
Jeez.
And you're talking like you go like, and you can't walk, man, and you can't deadlift, squat, bench, behind the neck press, heavy arms, boom, 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 40 sets for the chest. Ridiculous.
Well,
But
I want you to give the viewers.
I was
giving
big.
People don't think you can be strong without steroids. Before you touched a steroid, what were a couple of your top lifts?
So my best lift, drug-free, I did bench when I was in my teenage years. I remember thinking I got to bench those 3 plates. So 19 years old, before I was 20, I benched over 315 for one. And I'm not the best bencher. Definitely squatting up with 405 for reps. Trained over in Europe, trained in Holland with Jeroen and Barry DeMay. Remember Barry DeMay?
Yeah, of course.
The Dutch.
Flexing Dutchman. He still looks great.
Yeah. So I trained in Utrecht with not his town, but he was there in the gym with another monster back in the 80s. And I took a little steroids over there with me, Winstrol and Anavar, original, real. And I was scared to use them. And I went there and I was about 2.25. And they have the 44-pound plates, right? The 20 kilos.
Yeah.
And I remember just putting those on and I was up to about, I don't know. I mean, I'm never so strong with the actual number. I benched over 500 with a shirt on, and everyone knows I was 198.47. And I'm not going to say it's a drug-free lift. I'm not going to say that. It wasn't on much or anything, but I'm not going to say it's drug-free. It's with a shirt on also, but I weighed 197 pounds the morning, when I weighed in, and I was 47 and the bar touched and it was a clean lift. But in the end, back then, I was good for like big numbers, like 405 for like 22 reps on a deadlift, pseudo sumo, just banking them out. And then reps 405 for sets of like 12, deep squats, 315 for 30. That's the growth stuff. Yeah. And 110-pound dumbbells on the arm curl. What? And I called some guy out. Some guy called me out 10 years ago when I was writing for you guys. Yeah. And he said, you didn't do 110. And I go, you know what? Hell with this guy. I'm going, and on YouTube right now, there's a video out there. I'm doing 80-pound dumbbells strapped in, perfect form, just popping them off. I mean, I'm swinging them, but for 16 reps. And I was like, that's for you, John Paul up in Canada. So it's like, but, because, Jeff King showed me how to do those. Remember Jeff King?
Jeff King, guys. Google Jeff King bodybuilder. He was a NABA Mr. Universe. I think he won the AAU America. Springfield College, Massachusetts graduate. He had legs like he was another Tom Platz, another Paul DeMeo. He had these massive, massive quads. Unreal. He also had one of the biggest necks I've ever seen. He had like a 22-inch neck. He was a very, very thickly muscled guy.
I met him when I was in Holland with DeMay and the other guy. There was a whole, Mr. Universe. Remember, they were not the fighting with the IFBB and all that back in the 80s. Mm-hmm. So I met him then, and we trained I was living there because I'm moving to Holland. My stepdad's from.
So I moved over there. What the hell are you doing in Holland? But okay.
But so I was there and I was training with the big boys. And I remember it was was so underground, and it was so the Dutch guys were like, we're seen as like really dirt bags and dirty blue collar, and it was just like I never forget that. I came home, I kind of said, it's probably not going to be for me, and then I end up dropping, out of what I was doing and going back pre-med to med school into my, to my late 20s. But so I swear to God, eating tons of this is not recommended. In my video, I said not recommended. But if it's if it's an alternative, if you have to get big and strong, young man, I'm saying for the young men, if you have to get big and strong, and this is whatever you've been bitten by that bug and you're just hell bent for it, I certainly get it. This is going to be a disease. If you don't have to do steroids, because now getting cut and ripped for stage, Ron, I'm tapping out to you. I don't think it's, I mean, okay. And certain genes, 1 out of a million, whatever genes. And I'm talking old school. Let's get big and strong. Yeah, buddy. Let's lift big weights and let's be big men. I weighed 220 pounds, 5'9", 5'10". That's when I was I rocked the scales once at like almost 240. Total chipmunk. But you know what, though, Ron? I didn't give a crap. I was high. And I remember sooner when I was like 21, 23, that's like 17 to like 23. And then around 22, 23, I did look in the mirror. Maybe it was a girlfriend I had, or I wasn't getting girlfriends anymore or something. I looked in the mirror and I was like, holy shit, you are a big ass fat. Who cares if you're benching and then I started to wean down, and that's the story. That's it.
Here's my story, Dr. Thomas. It was a dark and stormy night. No, so I started training very young, 13, 14. So 18 years old is when I sort of discovered bodybuilding. I picked up a Flex magazine. Actually, it was sent to me because I sent away for a Weider, something. I bought a dynamic muscle builder shake. Anyway, doesn't matter. I had very little awareness of steroids. I started buying the magazines in 87. I'm looking at Lee Haney, Rich Gaspari, Mike Christian, Gary Stridham, that whole crew. And I didn't realize they were on steroids. I knew that steroids existed. I had a very vague idea that there was something called steroids, but I didn't think these guys were using them.
Wow.
I didn't realize how powerful they were, how prevalent they were. So, and I'm lucky. I'm so grateful that I didn't know, because ignorance was bliss. I didn't have that. I never had it in my head that I can't get bigger and I can't get stronger.
Yes.
So I proceeded to get bigger and stronger. By the time I moved out to California, early 91, I was 21 years old, and I went to work for a ESPN Muscle Magazine show. So that's when I started meeting all these pros. Every week I was meeting, people like Mike Matarazzo, Dorian Yates, Paul DeMeo, Sean Ray, Flex Wheeler, Chris Cormier, all the top people, because that show was something else. American Muscle on ESPN. So that's when I started understanding that steroids were used, because I would catch those snippets of conversations between them and their training partners, and it was still very hush hush back then. This is 91. So I knew steroids existed, but I was very anti-steroid. I had started competing in 1989 in a federation you might remember called the ANBC. It was a lifetime drug-free bodybuilding organization run out of Woonsocket, Rhode Island. They had most of their shows were clustered in the Northeast. They did a ton of shows in like Massachusetts, Connecticut, New Jersey. Anyway, so I was competing with them. So there was no way I was going near any steroids. I ate like a pig, I guess you'd say. Do you remember the weight gain shakes at that time? Well, there was two things. I was a follower of John Perillo, and I still believe many of his principles are valid. I owe him a lot in terms of knowledge, but he was a big believer in just pounding the food down.
Remember liver tablets, Ron?
I just stopped taking those like 2 years ago, Doc. I took those for about 25 years, like 5 to 8 of those with every meal. The desiccated liver.
The huge big jug.
Cap Tri. Remember the Cap Tri? It was the MCT oil, putting that on all my food.
Oh my God.
So every meal I'm having probably like 300 grams of carbs, either a giant baked potato, huge bowl of rice, along with a couple cans of tuna or whatever. And then the weight gain shakes came out. The ones that, remember, there was like a war between the supplement companies. Who could have the highest calorie weight gain shake? 1,000 calories. And I think Weider had like Mega Mass 5,000.
Oh my God.
Twin Lab had a 5,000 calorie shake. And so I don't want to say stealing, but we did on the show on the ESPN show every month, we did a segment called GNC Spotlight or something where we talked about some category of supplements. So we would do weight gain shakes probably about every 6 episodes because they were very popular. And they would just sit in the storage room after we did the product shots, and I took all those home. So I turned into, by the time I was 21 or 22, I say 22, I got up to 230 pounds at 5'8". I don't want to say chipmunk face because I don't want to insult a chipmunk, but man, my face was perfectly round. I had an ass like this big with dimples on it, a little bit of love handles, strong as a bull. I really was very strong. I could squat back then 500, deadlift 500, press 140s, 150s for chest, 130s for shoulders. And I had nobody ever told me you can't do that because you're not on drugs. You need to be on drugs to do that.
I know.
And when I would diet down though, this does need to be said. Steroids, you can get big and strong without steroids. You can get ripped. You can get ripped for competition without steroids, but you're not going to be big and ripped. You're going to lose muscle. You're not going to be 250 pounds ripped on steroids. Yeah. Because I'd be 230 and I would start my diet like, oh boy, I'm going to be 220 ripped. I get to 220, I'm still fat. Like maybe I'll be 210 ripped. I get to 200. Nope, still not ripped. I keep going. And it turns out like 170 to 180 was about the biggest I ever was in really great condition, drug-free, was 181 at 5'8". So then after 14 years of training drug-free, I went to the dark side, as we call it, because they have cookies. So you never see that meme with Darth Vader? They have come to the dark side, we have cookies. So I started steroids and I immediately blew up. Sustanon and Deca was my first cycle.
Yeah.
I did it was a lot of water weight. I got acne like boils on my back, but I put on a good 20 pounds my first cycle. I did an 8-week cycle of Sustanon and Deca, put on 20, 25 pounds, something like that, got a lot stronger. And I intended on doing that one cycle like every other idiot. And here I am 40 years later, still doing them. But I just want to get to the point is you do have to, if you want to get big and strong naturally, you do have to eat a ton of food, and you probably do have to get, unless you're one of those metabolic freaks that just builds muscle and stays super lean naturally. And, luckily there's not many of those people in the world because we hate them. But you have to eat it like the old school guys before steroids. They used to drink like cream or something, right? Like half and half.
Whole milk.
Some of them would drink cream. I remember because I had some old magazines. You talked about a book called Super Squats.
Yeah, buddy.
By Randall Strawson, PhD. So his whole drug-free formula for gaining muscle was what? Was one set of 20 rep breathing squats?
I'm not kidding.
A gallon of milk a day. Didn't he tell you?
I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. I mean,
a gallon of milk.
Right after training, just force yourself until you can't eat, until you're ready to, and just bait. And I've done it. You've done it. And let me tell you, it's almost like, how bad are your genetics? I'm pretty small. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I was a small guy. I mean, I went from wrestling in the 150s, 152, 157, the January weights, whatever. And then I blew, in the end, 2 years, 3 years later with no drugs, I was up in the 230s, just like you. I'm only 5'10", 5'9" also. And it just was mass. My legs are just chicken legs. My calves are chicken calves. But my thighs, my butt never got big, but my thighs were massive. And the squatting, I was so strong, easily curling with perfect form, 100-pound dumbbells, Jeff King style, off the bed. And to this day, it just holds. I'm 55, just holding, obviously TRT guy, but it's like, it just builds a base. But you know what though? You have to, Derek Poundstone, a friend of mine, told me a long time ago. Derek said, and this has nothing to do with steroids. He said, Doc, let me tell you something. You want to get big and strong? You take your mind. This was Poundstone training theory, whatever. He had all these theories. Very bright guy, amazing guy, really nice person. He said, first I bring my mind to that place and my body follows. And he's the one that drank all the chicken that he took mixed up chicken and water in the middle of hold on. No, the farting and stuff was horrendous, but it's like, I mean, but he had to take, he was 350-pound man. We'll talk about genetics from the lords. Oh, the guy's a caveman. I know his brother, I saw his father and his parents. I mean, they're just cave people. I love the guy. He doesn't mind me putting. He's a brilliant caveman.
Yeah.
So, and a nice caveman. But you push your body with death squats and all that big. And look at the NFL. Look at the training. It's the power cleans. It scientifically, it's such stress. Your body, when you're young and healthy, your body responds to it, and that's the overload principle, and that's how Ron. Up until this time, you are right. I didn't even realize what you were saying. These kids come to me, to you. They can't conceive. It's a poisoning. They can't conceive doing anything in any regimen, really, at least for like 2 weeks or a month, without going into a SARM, a pro hormone, a steroid. I swear, Ron, it's just that.
Tom, I've spoken to some of them. They say, I want to start training. What steroids should I use? So they haven't even started. They haven't touched a weight yet in their life. And they're already looking, they want to be on a cycle when they walk into the gym for the first time. And I'm just floored. Because,
Ron, that's what's happening.
Oh, I got to one up that chicken and water blender story of Poundstone. Mike Matarazzo used to do it with tuna. He would blend up tuna and drink tuna water. Oh God. I can't even smell tuna out of a can now with almost gagging, but geez. But just getting back to the strength thing, it worked very well. When you're in that time of your life, when you're your late teens into your probably early to mid 20s, your hormonal profile, it's in such a great place with the high testosterone, high growth hormone. I try to counsel these kids, if you're going to do steroids, please consider waiting until you're 25. Just train, wait till your mid 20s, late 20s. They say late 20s. Oh my God, that's like 1,000 years away.
Life is over. I'm retired.
YOLO. But they don't want to wait. They're impatient. I understand it's a faster world we live in now. But I encourage them to build a natural base first, because what happens when you do that is that muscle's permanent. You're never losing that muscle. So if you train for 10 years naturally and you build up to a certain size and strength, then you go on steroids and you take it up to another level, you're eventually going to have to either come off steroids or take time off of steroids sooner or later. If you stay on high amounts of steroids forever, you're going to die. That's reality.
That's what my life is about, showing in a non-judgmental manner to heal men that are on steroids. And this is our open show of just telling what it is. It used to be that guys would train to the edge of being natural, probably 23. I think the bodybuilders, Ron, even back then, some of the no names mentioned that they were doing steroids at 19, 20, 21. And some of them have said, in the IFBB pro open leagues or whatever was back then with the Mr. America, whatever those two leagues were.
Yeah.
And, because they would say to me, and I'd be in the gym with them and I train with some of these guys in New York, I'm from New York. And they'd say, you know what, Tom, I have to do it. Look at it's a blessing and a curse. I'm so genetically gifted. I'm going to do it anyway. So I might as well just do it. Don't hate me for it. And I was like, I'm not hating you for it. I just don't want, we started realizing they couldn't come off because they would come off. And a guy I remember asked me to go out with, this is up at Syracuse when I was up there at Syracuse University. And he asked me to come hang out with him at night or come see him. And he was like crying. He was in a depression. And we went to his El Camino, his 1970 something El Camino, the El Caminos.
Oh yeah.
With the back. And I remember sitting in it and he pulled out, I'll never forget it. I never told anyone the story. It's an incredible story. Probably the beginning of the Anabolic Doc. And I was only like 20. I was like a junior up there, still just getting big and strong. We used to wear the suspenders. I had the big Jewish afro. And
call it a Jufro, but go ahead.
Jufro. We had a dead bird named Petey we used to train with. And like just benching for Petey. We'd be like, ammonia, and we put the icy hot. No, horse liniment. That's what powerlifters use.
Tiger balm.
No, horse liniment. Horse liniment.
How's that for?
It burns the skin. It's just freaky. And so you smell it when you're walking the stairs. You hear the weights. And he took me to the car. We were bouncing together at club, USA Sam's, I remember, upstate New York. And he goes to come, and he was breaking down because he was off. He's like, I'm going to get off steroids once and for all. He's been on and off for years. He's only 23 years old. And he goes, I'm going to shoot myself with this. And he pulls out a revolver. Or I'm gonna shoot myself with this. And he had the sussed it on pre-filled syringes, I think from Mexico or something.
Yeah, the Ready
And
Jack. I had those.
yeah, and I go, Mike. Oh, I don't want to say his name. I go, buddy. Um, we're gonna take the gun. I'll take this gun, and why don't we just give you a shot, to get you back on some testosterone, make you feel better.
Yeah.
I'll never forget it.
And here you are 30 years later talking to guys who are feeling depressed and suicidal because they've been told, taking cold turkey off steroids and their doctors won't put them on TRT. So wow. So that was the spark of the Anabolic Doc.
I don't remember. That was actually the spark of it. And the real story was I was in the ER as a doctor and I saw my first patient, and the other doctors were very nice. They were like, we don't feel comfortable taking care of this man because he's on all these drugs and he's so big. They were amazed. Beautiful guy. That's the guy in the back of the book of the book somewhere around here. And it's the back. That's that. See that? Back of the book. Read the top.
You're on the back of the book. No. Thanks again, Doc, for doing what you do. And thank God you are teaching the world about this crazy underground bro science crap. The truth is that even the most badass guys are scared and want help because of their steroid use. Daniel. So that was the guy in the ER?
No. The top is a top of that. There's something.
Okay. It was 3:30 a.m. September 2003. I was on call in my second year of residency training at a major medical center in Hartford, Connecticut, when I was paged to the ER to see a 37-year-old man, a well-dressed accountant with chest pain and atrial fibrillation. The admitting doctors seemed intimidated by the incredibly muscular physique of this 5'9" and 265-pound man. None of them recognized the drugs he said he was on: Sustanon 250, Decadurabolin, Anadrol 50, and Winstrol. The man was jacked to the gills, but terrified of what was going wrong. When he was stabilized, he cried in relief and told his story, including how he had tried to quit using steroids 3 times on his own, failing because of the unendurable withdrawal from these very addictive drugs. This 4th time, under medical supervision, he succeeded. So he was patient zero
That's patient zero, and I presented him in front of like 100 doctors in Morning Report, and then the doctors said, because I asked all the doctors in the rooms, these are, between New York and Boston, got some smart people, right? So I big name places, right? So I asked the doctors; they know everything. Harrison's, they've memorized Harrison's internal medicine. No, literally, these are super genius people. There's no question. And I said, well, this guy's on Decadurabolin. Anyone know what Decadurabolin? Actually, this one girl knew, this woman from Indian, one of the brilliant residents. And I was impressed. And I pushed her forward. How about Anadrol? And then she tapped out. She tapped out on Anadrol. She knew Decadurabolin, and none of the attendings, and there were endocrinology attendings in there. They knew nothing about Winstrol. And they were remote. They were like, we understand these. And they were lumping them in one category, just steroids. And I was like, well, I think these men, they can't come off. When they come off, the numbers come crashing down and they're just suffering. And again, that was 2003, 2004, 5. And the thought was, in the expert endocrine opinion, was they're going to come back. Don't touch them. And then to this day, we know that's unethical. Now there's so much literature of anabolic steroid-induced hypogonadism. But that was that man, my buddy, in the car in the El Camino in the parking lot, bouncing, where he's going to shoot himself with a gun, or he's going to go back on testosterone. What should we do?
Yeah, well, I mean, he's alive, so you did the right thing.
He actually is alive, and you know what? Since that time, he's been on testosterone himself, and he's in his 50s.
Yeah, I was going to say he's got to be.
I talked to him 2 years ago. Yeah.
So I want to get back to the original question, because people are going to say, Harris, you clickbait mother effer. No. So the question of the video is, how big and strong can you get naturally? And the easy answer is much bigger and stronger than you are right now. There's no way to predict ahead of time how big or strong anybody ultimately is going to be. But here's cold hard truth. You're going to get bigger and stronger than you are now. And you're going to keep making gains. Gains slow down over time. You make your best gains in the beginning, of course. But naturally, I made steady incremental gains that whole time, the 13, 14 years I trained drug-free. And by the end of that period, 13, 14 years of training, I had plateaued out, and I had seen plenty of people around me using steroids, and I was sort of breaking down that I didn't have that moral objection to them. I was very, very holier than thou about my natural status.
Me too.
I really looked down on anybody that used steroids for years and years. I know it's ironic to hear me say that now, but I
So
was one of
funny.
those holier than thou natties. But and it's also very true that introducing steroids on top of that, you're going to get bigger and stronger. You're going to take it to another level, but it's going to come with series of health risks. There's no free lunch. There just isn't. There's a safer way to use steroids. There is no safe way to use steroids unless you're a man who's in legitimate hypogonadal need and needs TRT to bring him to normal levels. For everybody
I
else,
You've been brainwashed by me. It seems great. It's a great brainwashing, but it's true though. And I do it. I have a full-time job. I did my research. I tried to do it and this and that. And I know guys, I know you like steroids. People like steroids, men like steroids, women like steroids, but there are consequences. We just want to own up to the consequences and just, if you do it, I was a physician. I can't treat a man that doesn't need anything. So I have to delineate there's a need and then we proceed forward. And there's not just steroids and give them testosterone. We have, we have HCG. I have a lot of guys. The first thing we do is we work on fertility, Ron. We assess mental health, right? Which is a sad point today with what's going on out there in some of the news. Mental health, which has nothing to do with steroids. Nothing to do. People have depression. The steroids have nothing to do with depression. But can you worsen? Can you worsen? This is what I see all day long. This week, another big week. And yesterday I talked to a man, maybe even two men yesterday this week that just suffering from massive depression, massive, and on and off androgens with some of the symptoms helping and hurting and panic attacks. And come on, guys, it's real there. It's real. This, it's a true thing.
So I want to talk directly to the young guys out there thinking about using steroids. Max out your natural gains ride out your natural gains as long as you can. And you don't know what your ultimate natural potential is until you've been doing it for years and years. I can't say an exact 2.5 years, 5.3 years, but it's going to be at least a few years, at least. For me, it was over a decade before I hit that plateau. So I suspect for most people, it's probably in that range of 5 to 10 years of natural training, at least before you max out what you can do naturally. At that point, you have a decision. Is it worth the risk? Because I guarantee any of you who think you're going to do one cycle, you're not going to do one cycle. You're going to love the way you look and feel. Then when you go off the steroids, you're going to lose a little bit of the muscle, lose the fullness, lose the strength. You're going to be depressed because, man, a month ago, look at this picture of me a month or two ago on the beach. Oh my God, I don't look like that anymore. And you're going to want to go back on steroids. So it becomes a lifelong thing. It is an addiction. It is.
I love this show. I hope this show is seen by millions of people, but reality sets in.
Yeah.
People will see it, but they just don't, they hear it. But if this can help the one guy, like any young man to realize, and what happened during that period of natty training, what happens, I see guys, because they do consults all the time just to almost ask questions and tell me stuff. And I can see they're normal and they haven't been damaged and they have those questions. And, they're going to get off the bus. Guys say, when I was 13, 14, 16, 19, 20, 21, and then 23, 25. And then I did it. I was hell bent. And you know what, Doc? I never did it, or I did the one, or what, the guy that doesn't really do anything. And he just says, I'm tapping out and getting off the bus. And I went into some, and Ron, and again, it doesn't mean we hate this. We're not sick that we did it and we moved down that path. It's our profession. It's just what we've done. And there's some obsession, Ron. It's narcissistic and there's obsession. It's narcissism. It's narcissistic and it's obsessive. And there's no free lunch. But Ron, it's a beautiful free world, and at least our world. And it's a beautiful thing, and people are interested in the arts, any extreme. I mean, drag racing. And watching street drag racing the other night. The Hoosier Tires. My buddy sells those. Those guys are irritated right now, right? Because racing's not going to come back. That's not essential. So it's like, but like, look at the racing, and people who jump off of parachutes or a mountain bike. And so that's a defense of, hey, leave us alone. Like, this is an extreme sport. It does involve the drugs. Let's be honest about it. At a certain point, not every single one, but it's, at a certain point when you're playing with the top of the world, Ron, like you and I both know, there's going to be, and like we've said, and I've heard it's the top genetics that feel an obligation to take the steroids. Isn't that amazing, Ron? Don't you agree with that?
It's a justification. I sort of see a justification because even though there's very little money in bodybuilding, very little for most people, there are some guys doing well, but most of them don't make much money at it. Somebody who has spectacular genetics and could make a go of it, could make a living, could get contracts and prize winnings and anything, it makes a little more sense for them to do it versus some kid with horrible genetics who's never going to, even if he competes, he doesn't have the genetics to even win like his class at a local show.
But like you said, my average consult, my average patient is just a regular guy, man, and even knows I'm never gonna win this show or that show. Let's understand, and you agree, it's a high.
Yeah.
To train and play with it. Remember we were thinking like the movie, the Crazy Nut movie, the guy's going to do steroids and so he doesn't work out. And remember you and I were like, do steroids because you want to play with the toys more.
Yeah.
I mean, like, so people, it's a high. And again, when you're hypersexual, that comes with problems. But then when you come off, like you said, it's the pressure, not just for how you look, but you're physically, mentally, physiologically depressed because you're withdrawn, your T's down, dopamine, serotonin is down, and it's not a good place. So the thing will if you start steroids, you got to take the understanding that you could be on it forever.
Yeah, most likely you will be. And if you
will be on TRT forever.
Oh, I'm on it forever. My body's never going to make substantial amount of tests ever again. I want people to know that if they're getting into this, it's going to be for life. And I don't think steroids are ever going to be widely accepted to the point where you can admit to taking them and you're not going to be judged. Wow. I find that if people ask me about it, I don't lie, but I know if I can avoid getting that question, I do, because I don't like to talk about it. It's not something that's ever going to be widely accepted. I don't believe it will. And people think you're a cheater. And if they see any muscular person, they don't care if you trained for 20 years before steroids and you've been on steroids for the past 2 years. Every ounce of muscle in your body, they're going to attribute to steroids. Every ounce. So, you won't get any credit for your hard work and the fact that you eat 6 times a day and you're dedicated to the gym. People are going to hear, if they know that you're on steroids, that's it. I could look like that too if I was on steroids. I'd look just like you.
They lump it right in there. Yep, that's true. Well, I'm glad that it's come forward that you feel comfortable acknowledging. And I think the Rich Piana of the world is like, that's where it crossed, right? Where it was like, hey guys, I'm on this and I'm on that. When I saw that year, it wasn't that long ago. I was on you seeing Rich, hey guys, like and was sitting there when he was first under the bridge, and then he was in his kitchen, right, with all the, but of course, very sexy, right? All the money around, all those guys, appeared to be very wealthy.
I think there was a blonde in a bikini somewhere, probably.
Yeah. Everywhere for Rich. And then he's like, hey guys, he's sitting there. So like, I'm trying to get up to 310 pounds. I'm on, Equiport. I mean, I was like, I can't believe they're saying this on, and, the Boston Lloyd, which, was, there's reason why he came out and now everyone's come out, and I'm completely, we have to have openness and trust, and it has to be completely progressive. Medical community has to be progressive. Ron? It has to be no power. I don't mean political progressiveness. I mean loving, caring, kindness to ease suffering. That's progressive as a medical community in the community.
Yeah, that's your mission. I got to backtrack one last story. I promise. I hope I haven't told this story to you 30 times before, but you're familiar with the movie Bigger, Stronger, Faster. It was a documentary produced by Chris Bell. So I knew Chris. We used to work together back at the ESPN show back in the 90s in California. So we were at I think it was an Olympia one year. I was walking through the Olympia. I think I was on an escalator at the Mandalay when it was at the Mandalay, I remember. And Chris was there with a friend, and he taps me on the shoulder. I was like, oh my God, Chris, I hadn't seen him in a couple of years. He goes, I'm going to be making this documentary about steroids. I'd like to interview you for it. You could talk about it because, I was I was clearly jacked up at the time. I was all buff and swollen and puffy. I said, no, 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 no. I can't talk about that on camera. That's one of the biggest regrets of my life, because that turned out to be an amazing movie. I love that movie. And I was like, I could have been in that movie.
Oh,
I
man.
turned the director down, you doofus. Anyway.
Well, you're Ron Harris. You're running Muscular Development digitally.
Not
Come
back
on.
then I wasn't. No, that was when I was just a freelance writer, and I was very, very much afraid. A lot of people had known me as a natural bodybuilder, and I never came out and said I wasn't natural, but after a certain point, once I wasn't natural, I never claimed to be natural anymore after that. But a lot of people assumed I was, because they knew I had written a lot of articles about natural bodybuilding. I had competed. They associated with me, and I was afraid of tarnishing my reputation, 100%.
Tough transition. Yeah.
Now look at me. Trend, trend, trend. Test, test, test. That's all I talk about. So
just keep the heart healthy, please.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, doctor, you're doing such a wonderful thing. You're bringing awareness, and you're taking the stigma away, because so many men for years and years, they avoided medical treatment. They avoided seeing doctors no matter what was going on with them. These are steroid users or former steroid users, but especially people who are currently on steroids. They were so terrified of going to their doctor and being looked down on, judged harshly, or maybe even the doctor's going to call the cops on me and say, go raid this guy's house. The paranoia, there's still a lot of that out there, but
it's still there. It's getting better.
You have personally done quite a bit to turn the tide. So congratulations for that. Yeah.
Thank you. It's a beautiful world.
Yeah. Well, Doc, I've taken up a lot of your time. I know you're doing telemedicine all day and all night these days. Who would have thunk? My son has a Facebook doctor's appointment on Monday. I gotta check this out.
Crazy.
I have to be on standby to supervise, because
we're not surgeons, so we could do a good job with this, but it's going to be nice to see people sooner or later.
Yeah, let's hope so. Well, Doc, I'm going to wrap it up. I want everyone to check out that website, Testosteronology. Testosterone with the E at the end dropped, and then ology, O-L-O-G-Y. You can see it behind him. That's where you can find out about the doctor, his services, his offices in Connecticut and Florida. You can hopefully become a patient if you need his services. He's very busy, but maybe he can squeeze you in. I don't know. You can also get this book, America on Steroids, A Time to Heal. Doctor, thank you so much for your time. Yeah, it's a crazy, crazy phase we're in here with quarantine, but I hope this is one of the last shows we do in quarantine. I hope it's the last one.
Awesome, Ron. Awesome.
Also, one last thing, guys, Anabolic Doc channel on YouTube, the doctor's YouTube channel, amazing content every week. That's where I steal most of my ideas for these videos from. Anabolic Doc. He is the Anabolic Doc. He's also a testosteronologist, Dr. Thomas O'Connor. Thank you so much, Doctor.
Thank you, Ron. Thank you, Muscular Development. Steve Blackman, thank you.
And everybody, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.